You are not free. You think you are, but every thought, every move, every breath is chained to what others will say about you. You live in a cage built by other people's eyes. And the worst part? You built it yourself. In this talk, I will teach you how to stop obeying the world. You will learn how to break free from the gaze of others, how to silence the endless noise of judgment, and how to live by your own law. I will show you that freedom does not mean pleasing no one. It means not needing to please anyone. You will understand why trying to be liked kills your strength, and why your greatest power lies in your indifference to opinion. By the end, you will see that the only true respect comes from fear, and the only true peace comes from solitude. When you stop caring what others think, you don't lose the world, you gain yourself. I know why you care so much. You were raised to. From birth, you were taught to obey, to smile when you don't mean it, to agree when you don't believe, to stay small so no one feels threatened. The world told you that approval is love and rejection is death. So you built your life around being accepted. You became careful, polite, predictable, and miserable. But here's the truth no one dares to say. Every time you bend to please someone, you die a little. Every time you silence your own voice to protect another's comfort, you cut away a piece of your spirit. And when nothing of you is left, they will call you good. I am not here to make you good. I am here to make you real. What I will tell you in this video will offend the obedient, because freedom always insults those who have chosen submission. You will learn how to strip away the need to be liked, how to walk alone without shame, how to stand in the open and say, I am my own master. This will not make you comfortable, it will make you alive. And so, in this time together, I will take you through the slow death that comes from needing approval, and how to kill it before it kills you. We will uncover how society trains you to depend on opinion, how fear of rejection keeps you obedient, and why every crowd secretly despises the man who stands alone. I will show you why independence always begins with betrayal, betrayal of the false self that was built for applause. We will explore what it truly means to be free, not the freedom to do what you want, but the freedom to not need permission. You will see that indifference is not cruelty, it is clarity. That solitude is not emptiness, it is sovereignty. And before this ends, I will give you what the world fears most, the courage to disobey, the courage to be hated, the courage to walk through the storm of opinion untouched, because only when no one's voice is louder than your own will you finally hear yourself. Here's something most people never realize: your slavery no longer looks like slavery. It looks like fitting in. It looks like being accepted. It looks like belonging. You think you're free because no one holds a whip over you, because no bars surround you. But the bars are there, invisible, built from opinions, expectations, and the gaze of others. Every word you speak, every dream you chase, every silence you keep, is shaped by that invisible audience in your mind, the one you're always performing for, even when you pretend you're not. You are not free, you are approved of. And that is worse. The greatest chains are not made of iron, they are made of praise. That's the trick society learned. If you can make a man crave approval, you don't need to control him, he'll control himself. He'll clip his own wings just to be liked. He'll shrink to fit inside other people's comfort zones and call it maturity. And when he has buried every wild part of himself, they'll call him good. The crowd rewards obedience with smiles, and you mistake those smiles for love. But it's not love, it's permission. Permission to stay small, to stay predictable, to stay quiet. When I left the university, people said I had lost everything: status, safety, respect. But what they didn't see was that I had gained something far greater: solitude, the freedom to think without permission. I had walked out of a temple built on compromise, and though I stood alone, exiled, laughed at, I felt alive again because I had broken the leash. Every man must break it sooner or later, or else he'll spend his life being a mirror reflecting everyone else's thoughts, everyone else's fears, until he no longer knows what his own face looks like. You might think you seek truth, but most of what you call truth is only the comfort of agreement. You don't want to know, you want to belong. You want to believe what others believe so that no one points at you and says, "You're strange." That word strange has killed more originality than any sword in history. It's the herd's favorite weapon. It says, "Be like us, or we'll leave you alone. And most people would rather die than be alone. They would rather betray themselves than be different. So they live in this polite prison, smiling, clapping, nodding, blending in, dead but applauded. Here's the irony. The more you try to please others, the less they respect you. They may like you, but they'll never admire you. Because admiration is born from strength, and people can smell when you're bending. The man who always agrees, who never offends, who hides his truth behind politeness, they don't trust him. They tolerate him the way you tolerate a shadow that follows but never leads. The crowd praises him in public and forgets him the moment he leaves the room. But the one who dares to stand apart, the one who disobeys the invisible law of approval, they call him dangerous. And only the dangerous are free. Think of the herd, 1,000 animals moving together, not because they understand where they're going, but because they fear being and left behind. The first one to step aside to question the path is branded insane. But if he survives, if he endures the loneliness long enough, others will eventually follow. That's how truth begins: one rebel, one refusal, one person who stops asking, "What will they think of me?" and starts asking, "What do I think of them?" That's the moment when the chain breaks. You look in the mirror every day, but that's not the real mirror. The real mirror is every human gaze you walk past. You check yourself in their eyes, adjust your words to their approval, your tone to their comfort, your choices to their applause. You have become your own warden. You lock yourself in and then wonder why you can't breathe. Freedom will never come to you until you smash that mirror and stop measuring your worth by reflections. Here's the danger: most people never see approval is an addiction. And like all addictions, it begins as pleasure and ends as dependence. At first, it feels good to be liked. You feel seen, validated, safe. But soon, you can't live without it. You start chasing it, altering yourself to maintain it, sacrificing your truth to protect it. And when the crowd turns away, you fall apart. That's when you realize you were never living, you were performing. The approval of others is the most seductive drug there is. It promises love, but it delivers weakness. Every yes you give to please someone is a no to yourself. And after enough no's, you disappear. I've watched brilliant minds become hollow because they traded their edge for acceptance. They wanted to be liked so badly they forgot what they stood for. And the tragedy? The crowd never loved them more for it. The crowd doesn't love, they consume. They use your obedience as entertainment, your conformity as comfort. The moment you stop performing, they find another puppet. You can't serve two masters, truth and approval. You must choose. If you choose truth, the world will hate you for a time, mock you, call you arrogant. But in that hatred, there's respect. The one who stands alone becomes a mirror for everyone's cowardice. They'll resent you, but they'll never forget you. If you choose approval, the world will love you, but it will also forget you, because nothing remembered is ever born from obedience. So ask yourself, who are you performing for? The dead eyes of strangers, the faceless crowd, the ghosts of people who stopped thinking long ago? Every time you seek their validation, you hand them your leash, you make them your god, and you become their priest serving the religion of approval. Here's what I want you to see: freedom isn't gained by convincing the world to like you. Freedom begins when you no longer care if it does. You must be willing to be misunderstood, misjudged, even hated, because only the misunderstood can change anything. The man who obeys is loved by everyone and respected by no one. The man who disobeys is hated by everyone and feared by all, and fear is the beginning of respect. The approval of others is a leash you wear proudly around your neck. The world doesn't have to pull it, just has to smile, and you walk where it leads. But to cut that leash, to stop caring what they think, you must face something deeper than fear. You must face the emotion that keeps you bowing when your soul wants to rise. It's not love that keeps you chained. It's not even fear. It's something older, darker, quieter. Shame, and that is where our next step begins. What I'm about to tell you will sound simple, but it is the secret reason most people never become free. It isn't fear that truly keeps them enslaved. It's shame. Fear keeps you from danger. Shame keeps you from yourself. Fear warns you of threat. Shame warns you of judgment. It's not the lash of the whip that makes men obedient, but the imagined laughter of others. Shame is the invisible rope that ties you to the herd, the quiet whisper that says, "Don't stand out. Don't speak too loud. Don't make them look at you." It is the ancient trick the weak learn to control the strong. The moment a man rises above them, they surround him with shame, and he kneels again to be accepted. Shame is not morality, it is social control wearing the mask of virtue. The crowd calls it good manners, humility, decency. But beneath that costume it is pure fear, fear of disapproval disguised as goodness. The world teaches you that pride is sin because pride makes you untouchable. It calls rebellion arrogance because rebellion exposes cowardice. And so you spend your whole life apologizing for your strength, hiding your brilliance, downplaying your fire. You call it being humble, but it is not humility. It is submission dressed in polite words. True humility is knowing your power and not needing to prove it. What the world asks of you is not humility but surrender. Here's how shame begins. As a child, you spoke too loudly, and someone told you, "Be quiet, don't draw attention." You expressed anger, and they said, "That's not nice. Control yourself." You told the truth, and they said, "That's rude. You'll hurt feelings." And little by little, you learned that to be loved, you must be small. To be safe, you must be invisible. To be accepted, you must betray yourself. You learned that honesty leads to punishment, that difference leads to ridicule, that passion leads to rejection. You learned that approval is survival. And now, even as an adult, when no one is watching, you still whisper to yourself, "Don't be too much." You carry their voices like ghosts in your mind. That's what shame is, the echo of other people's weakness, still haunting your courage. The crowd has perfected this game. It rewards mediocrity and punishes greatness. It calls the ordinary normal and the extraordinary wrong. It builds its morality on comfort, not truth. It says, "Don't climb too high, you'll fall. Don't think too much, you'll go mad. Don't be yourself, you'll offend someone." And the moment you listen, the moment you shrink to please them, they reward you with belonging. But that belonging is an illusion, it's a chain made of smiles. The crowd will never love you as you are. They only love the version of you that serves their comfort. Look back through history, and you'll see this everywhere. They shamed Socrates for asking questions that exposed their ignorance. They shamed Galileo for looking through a lens and seeing the truth. They burned Bruno alive for daring to say that the universe had no center. They called each of them dangerous, blasphemous, arrogant. But what they really meant was, "You make us feel small." The crowd doesn't crucify the wicked, it crucifies the free. Even now, this same pattern repeats. The world doesn't use fire or gallows anymore, it uses ridicule, gossip, silence. They don't kill you. They laugh you into submission. They call you crazy until you agree with them again. They shame you into obedience, not with violence, but with exile. And for most people, exile is worse than death, because to stand alone is to face yourself, and most cannot bear that. They would rather be accepted in a lie than isolated in truth. Here's what you must understand. Shame cannot survive exposure. It grows in secrecy. It feeds on your silence. The moment you name it, the moment you say, "Yes, I am different, and I will not apologize for it," it begins to die. Every genius, every creator, every prophet I have admired had to kill shame before they could speak. It was their first war, fought not against others, but against the voice in their own heads whispering, "You'll be hated for this." And they were hated, but they were also remembered. The weak hide their shame by pretending to be humble. The strong use their shame as fuel. Every time the world said, "You cannot," I said, "Watch me." Every insult became a seed of defiance. Every attempt to humiliate me reminded me that I was dangerous to their comfort. And that danger, that danger is the sign that you are alive. When the crowd fears you, you are closer to your truth than ever before. So how do you kill shame? You confront it directly. You feel it, you name it, and you refuse to bend. The next time that heat rises in your chest when someone mocks you, don't run from it. Let it burn. Let it consume the parts of you still begging for their approval. That's what fire is for, to purify, not destroy. Shame only rules the man who hides from it. Once you stand in it without flinching, it loses its power. When I was younger, I tried to fit in. I tried to please. I wanted to be respected by my peers, accepted by the scholars, admired by the polite world. And for a while, I succeeded. They praised my manners, my reason, my restraint, but each compliment felt like a wound, because I knew they didn't love me. They loved my obedience. They loved the quiet version of me that never threatened their comfort. When I finally spoke with my own voice, they called me arrogant, mad, immoral. But I was free. I lost their approval and gained my soul. That is the bargain every free spirit must make. Here's the truth that will offend you. If you want to stop caring what people think, you must be willing to be shamed. You must be willing to be hated, mocked, ridiculed, abandoned. You must stop confusing love with validation. You must stop measuring your worth in applause. The crowd's approval is the applause of the weak, congratulating you for being like them. The silence of the crowd is the applause of the strong, recognizing that you no longer need them. Shame was invented to make men obedient. Kill it, and you will terrify them. Because the one thing the world cannot control is a man who no longer blushes for being himself. But once shame dies, something else appears to take its place. The world will no longer whisper that you are wrong. It will roar that you are alone. It will turn its back and say, "Let's see how long you last without us." And that is where most souls break, because they mistake solitude for punishment. But solitude is not a curse, it is a crown. And that is what we must speak of next. Once you've killed shame, once you've torn yourself from the herd and no longer bow to their approval, the world reveals its final weapon: silence. It stops trying to humiliate you and begins to ignore you. It turns its back, and you're left standing alone, stripped of the noise that used to fill your mind. This is the test that very few survive, because here there are no echoes to reassure you, no familiar reflections smiling back. The applause has stopped, the voices are gone, and in that stillness you feel the weight of everything you have lost: belonging, validation, companionship, noise. But listen to me. What feels like loss is rebirth. The silence is not emptiness. It's space, the space where your real voice begins to speak. The world calls this isolation, but I call it the freedom of aloneness. Here's what most people miss. Solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is when you crave company and can't have it. Solitude is when you stop craving altogether. Loneliness is fear of the void. Solitude is mastery of it. The crowd teaches you that to be alone is to be broken, that happiness is something shared, that your value is measured by how much attention you receive. That lie keeps the herd together. They huddle close, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of their own thoughts, fear of silence, fear of the truth that without the crowd, they are nothing. So they cling to one another like prisoners clinging to their chains. They need each other not to connect, but to escape. And you who have begun to break free, must now learn to walk alone. When I retreated into the mountains, when I turned my back on society and the polite world, they said I had gone mad, but in truth, I had gone sane. I had simply walked far enough from the noise to hear my own heartbeat again. In the beginning, the silence was unbearable. I could hear every doubt echo in my skull, every whisper of the world telling me I was wrong, every ghost of old approval haunting me. But with time, that noise began to fade. What replaced it was something fierce and quiet clarity. I began to see the world not as others told me it was, but as it truly is. Solitude strips away illusions like fire strips away flesh. It leaves you raw, vulnerable, but real. The desert is the forge of the soul. That's what I call it, the desert of the self. Every free man must cross it. You will wander there without maps, without praise, without direction, and you will think you are lost. But only in losing the world can you find yourself. The desert burns away the need to be seen. It teaches you to exist without applause. It takes everything that was not truly yours and leaves you with one thing: your will. The will to keep walking when no one is watching, to keep creating when no one cares, to keep believing in your vision even when the entire world turns away. The desert kills the weak, but it crowns the strong. You will be tempted to return to the crowd, to go back to the noise, to pretend you never tasted solitude. You will miss the comfort of familiar approval, the lazy safety of agreement. The loneliness will whisper that you've made a mistake. But that voice isn't truth, it's withdrawal. You're addicted to validation, and solitude is the detox. Stay through the shaking, stay through the silence, because what comes after that silence is something no applause can ever give you: peace. Not the peace of comfort, but the peace of independence. The world says, no man is an island. I say, every great man is a mountain. The mountain stands alone, unshaken by the safe storm, untouched by the opinions of those in the valley. It does not move to be admired. It is admired because it does not move. The world may climb it, curse it, worship it, or forget it, but the mountain remains. That is how you must become. Solitude gives you that stillness, the stillness that comes from knowing that no one's opinion can add to or subtract from who you are. Now, when I speak of indifference, I do not mean apathy. Apathy is weakness disguised as calm. Indifference is strength disguised as silence. To be indifferent is not to stop feeling it, is to stop being controlled by what you feel. The crowd loses its power the moment you stop reacting to it. Every insult becomes harmless, every compliment meaningless. You begin to see that approval and hatred are the same chain, just held at opposite ends. The man who can walk away from both is untouchable. The world will call you cold for this. They'll say you don't care, that you've lost your heart. But the truth is, the opposite: you have found it. You've simply stopped lending it to others for their approval. They confuse dependence with warmth, conformity with compassion, obedience with goodness. But goodness is not measured by how much you please others. It's measured by how much of yourself you can keep intact while standing among them. The indifferent man can love more deeply, because his love is not bought by validation or fear. He loves because he chooses, not because he needs. Think of the storm and the mountain. The storm rages, screams, and breaks itself against the stone, but the mountain remains silent, unmoved, patient. The storm is the crowd. It howls for attention, demands reaction, feeds on chaos. The mountain is the free spirit. It listens, endures, and waits until the noise dies. Indifference is the calm that breaks the storm's power. That is how you win against the world, not by shouting louder, but by refusing to shout at all. And in that silence, you will notice something strange. The same people who mocked you for walking alone will begin to follow. They'll speak of your strength, your confidence, your mystery. They'll pretend they always admired you, but you'll know it isn't admiration, it's recognition. They've seen what they could have been if they'd had your courage. Every man secretly envies the one who no longer needs his approval. Solitude and indifference, these are not the end. They are the preparation. They are the ground where the roots of true freedom grow. You've killed shame. You've faced silence. You've learned to be untouched by opinion. Now you must learn the highest lesson, the lesson that frightens even the free spirit. You must learn to disobey, not just others, but everything the world has taught you about who you are. Because only in disobedience can you finally become. Here is where most people stop. They escape the crowd, they silence the noise, they even begin to walk alone. But still, they obey. They obey quietly, politely, secretly. They obey the old gods of their upbringing, the morality of their culture, the invisible rules written in their bones. They no longer kneel before men, but they kneel before ideas. They free their bodies but not their minds. And so their rebellion is incomplete, because it is still guided by fear, the fear of being wrong, of being condemned, of stepping too far into the wilderness where no law remains. To truly stop caring what people think, you must go beyond rejection. You must dare to betray. You must betray everything the world taught you to revere. That is the courage to disobey. Disobedience is not defiance for its own sake. It is not rebellion for the sake of pride. It is the will to say no when every voice around you screams yes. It is the strength to question the sacred, to turn against the gods that no longer serve life. All creation begins with this act. Every artist, every thinker, every prophet, every great spirit has at some point raised his hand against the collective and declared, "You are wrong." That is the moment civilization moves forward, the moment someone refuses to obey what no longer deserves obedience. But here's what most never understand. Obedience feels good. It feels safe. It gives you a sense of belonging. You obey your family to be loved, your faith to be forgiven, your nation to feel proud, your friends to be accepted. Obedience is not forced, it is desired. That is what makes it so dangerous. You mistake obedience for goodness because it flatters your ego to be approved of. You think you are virtuous because you are agreeable. You call yourself disciplined when you are simply afraid to say no. The truth is, obedience is the easiest path to walk. It requires no thought, no risk, no courage. To obey is to die before you die, to move through life as a shadow wearing someone else's light. You must understand, every truth worth speaking will offend someone. That is its proof. The more universal a lie becomes, the more sacred it appears. When you begin to think for yourself, you will inevitably offend. The moment you speak a new truth, the crowd will surround you, not with argument, but with accusation. They will say you are arrogant, heartless, evil, corrupted. But they are not describing you, they are describing their fear. Every insult from the obedient is an admission of submission. They call you dangerous because your existence reminds them of their chains. When I began to write my truths, when I dared to speak against the morals of my time, they called me a destroyer, a nihilist, a madman. But I was destroying only what was already dead. I was breaking the idols that men had worshipped long after their gods had stopped answering. That is the purpose of disobedience, to clear the ground for creation. Obedience preserves, rebellion transforms. The obedient man maintains what is dying. The disobedient man gives birth to what must live. You must be willing to be hated for this. You must learn to carry the hatred of others as calmly as you carry your own shadow. Let them hate you, it costs them nothing. But to bow to their hatred costs you everything. When they call you selfish, what they really mean is that you've stopped being useful to their comfort. When they call you arrogant, what they mean is that your confidence exposes their cowardice. When they call you evil, what they mean is that you've stopped pretending to share their delusions. Do not defend yourself. Let them speak. Let them crucify. Let them condemn. For every word they throw, another piece of your false self dies, and that is how the real one begins to breathe. You must also disobey yourself. The greatest tyrant lives inside your head. He is the voice that says, don't go too far, don't risk too much, stay where it's safe. He hides behind reason and calls his fear wisdom. You must rebel against him too. He will try to convince you that peace is better than passion, that order is better than chaos, that humility is better than pride. But I tell you, life is born from chaos. Creation requires pride, for only the proud dare to create. You must betray even your inner obedience, the voice that says, be humble, be good, be liked. Silence it with one word, no. The myth of Lucifer has always fascinated me, not because of his fall, but because of his reason. He did not fall out of hatred. He fell out of refusal. He would not kneel. He looked upon power and said, I will not serve. And for that, they called him evil. But I see him differently. I see in that act the first spark of individuality. He was the first to disobey, not out of rage, but out of dignity. That is what every free spirit must do. Refuse to kneel before what no longer deserves reverence. Refuse to obey even when the world calls your disobedience sin. For in that moment, you exchange the comfort of heaven for the freedom of fire, and in the fire, you discover yourself. Understand this clearly. Disobedience is not chaos. It is order rebuilt by a stronger will. It is the sacred act of tearing down the old to make space for the new. The man who disobeys does not seek destruction, but rebirth. He does not destroy for pleasure, but because something greater demands to be born. Creation is rebellion carried to its highest form. Every artist is a rebel painting on the ruins of obedience. Every philosopher is a heretic writing the scriptures of tomorrow. When I say the courage to disobey, I do not mean reckless defiance. I mean the calm certainty of one who has tested his convictions and found them true even when no one agrees. The disobedient man does not shout. He acts. He does not seek war. He refuses surrender. He does not need the world's permission to exist, because his existence is his permission. That is freedom, not rebellion for its own sake, but the refusal to let anything outside your will define your worth. So I ask you now, whom do you still obey? Whose voice still commands your thoughts? Whose judgment still shapes your choices? It may be your parents, your faith, your nation, your friends. It may even be me, but until you disobey them all, including me, you are not yet free. True freedom demands that you create your own law, not as a rejection of all others, but as a declaration that you no longer need theirs. Disobedience is the fire that destroys illusion, the storm that clears the air, the sword that cuts through the fog of inherited belief. And what rises from the ashes of that fire is not arrogance, it is authenticity. It is the man who obeys no one, not even his own weakness. That is where we go next, the birth of the one who stands beyond obedience, beyond fear, beyond the reach of the world itself. There is a man who walks beyond rebellion. He does not bow, but he also does not need to shout that he stands. He has burned the bridges that led back to the crowd, and now he builds nothing new in their place, because he understands the truth that few ever reach. The highest freedom is not disobedience, it is mastery. The man who obeys no one does not live in defiance, he lives in command. His mind no longer bends toward fear or praise, toward approval or rejection. He has learned to command himself, to shape his thoughts as a sculptor shapes stone. And in that mastery, he no longer reacts to life, he creates it. He has gone beyond the struggle between obedience and rebellion. He has become something else entirely, a law unto himself. To obey no one, not even yourself. What does that mean? It means you no longer live at the mercy of impulses, emotions, or moods. You stop confusing freedom with indulgence. You stop mistaking rebellion for chaos. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want, but that is only another form of slavery. If your desires control you, if your fears dictate you, if your pleasures command your choices, you are still obeying, you're just obeying a new master. Freedom is not doing what you want, it is wanting what you have chosen. The man who obeys no one does not chase his desires, he directs them. His emotions are his instruments, not his rulers. His will does not ask for permission from comfort, habit, or feeling. It decides, and then it acts. Look at the world, the endless noise of people mistaking impulse for authenticity. They shout, "I'm just being myself," but they've never met themselves. Their self is a bundle of cravings inherited from others. They obey trends, culture, fashion, instinct, and call it freedom. They confuse expression with creation. The man who obeys no one is different. He listens, he chooses, he commands. His silence carries more power than their screams, because his silence is chosen. That is what separates the free from the chaotic. Choice. I once wrote that the highest type of man is the creator of values, the one who no longer asks what is good or bad, but decides it. Most people inherit their morals as they inherit their language, without question, without thought. They repeat the values of their parents, their country, their religion, as if reciting a song they never wrote. But the man who obeys no one composes his own melody. He tears down the morality that was given to him, not out of spite, but out of necessity. He builds a new morality from the ground of his own experience. His virtues come not from obedience, but from understanding. He is not kind because the world demands kindness. He is kind when his strength allows it. He is not cruel because the world fears cruelty. He is cruel when truth demands it. His morality is born from will, not from rules. To obey no one means you no longer live to please even yourself. You stop chasing comfort, stop worshipping your own moods, stop kneeling before your appetites. You learn to master them instead. Pleasure will come, pain will come, but you no longer depend on either. You become like the sea waves rise, waves fall, but the depths remain still. That stillness is strength. That stillness is power. The man who obeys no one does not flee from suffering, nor does he chase pleasure. He simply walks, steady, through both. To reach this state, you must first burn through rebellion itself. Rebellion is still reaction. It still depends on what it defies. If you hate the crowd, you are still tied to it, because your identity depends on opposition. But the man who obeys no one is not against the world. He is beyond it. He has stopped defining himself by comparison. He no longer measures his worth by contrast with others. He lives by his own rhythm, his own pulse, his own law. He does not need to be understood. He does not need to win. His victory is in existing as he chooses, unshaken, untouched, absolute. I know what you might be thinking, that such a man must be cold, heartless, unreachable. But that is only because you have mistaken dependency for connection. The one who obeys no one loves more deeply, not less. His love is not born of need but of abundance. He does not cling to others to complete him. He gives because he overflows. His love is not a transaction, it is a declaration. I choose you, not because I must, but because I will. Only the free can love purely, because only the free can afford to lose. The dependent love to survive. The free love to create. Freedom of this kind terrifies the world. It cannot be categorized, cannot be bought, cannot be controlled. Society will call this man dangerous because he cannot be manipulated through shame or flattery. They will invent names for him: arrogant, immoral, selfish, insane, because they must name what they cannot understand. But he does not care. He smiles, and the noise passes through him like wind through a canyon. He does not resist it, he does not absorb it, he simply remains. That is his secret stillness without submission. The man who obeys no one becomes something greater than a man. He becomes the standard by which other men measure themselves. They will despise him, then envy him, then imitate him. His strength exposes their weakness, his independence reveals their dependence. And yet, without intending to, he awakens them. His very existence is a challenge. Why are you still obeying? He becomes a mirror that shows the herd its chains. Most will look away, but a few, the rare few, will see and begin to break free. This is what I mean by the Übermensch, the one who transcends the old morality, who rises above the petty dualities of good and evil, right and wrong, obedience and rebellion. He does not live in reaction to the world. He creates the world anew through his existence. His strength is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. His wisdom is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to transform it into creation. He no longer seeks meaning, he becomes it. When you reach this point, something remarkable happens. The opinions of others fade into silence, not because you ignore them, but because they lose their weight. You stop fighting to prove anything, to defend anything, to change anything. You exist as truth itself, and truth has no need for witnesses. You become the mountain after the storm, scarred, unmoved, eternal. That is what it means to obey no one, not even yourself. And so I tell you now, the one who stops caring what others think does not become cruel, he becomes whole. He does not become selfish, he becomes sovereign. He does not separate himself from the world, he becomes the measure of it. To obey no one is not to stand above life. It is to stand within it fully, without fear, without disguise, without permission. It is to say yes to existence in its entirety, with all its suffering, all its beauty, all its madness, and to declare, I am enough. You will not find this freedom in books, nor in followers, nor in approval. You will find it only in the quiet conviction that no one, not man, not God, not even your own mind, has the authority to command your soul. When you reach that point, nothing can touch you, because nothing owns you. You have become free, utterly and completely.